So how to look after yourself during the ceremony. Again, I'm just being purposely careful here in what I share, particularly about this part of these videos, because I don't want you to go away and get attached to my experiences or have expectations that you're going to experience the same thing as me. One thing I've noticed, over my ceremonies is that we all have very different experiences. There's some commonalities and things like this, and there's some things that people have shared that I have never experienced shared, and vice versa. So, and it's not a competition. We get to experience what we need to experience, and what we are also capable of experiencing. And as we've kept on sort of saying, the cleaner we go into these ceremonies, the likelihood is the deeper our experience will be. So again, just to reiterate what I've said before, the number one thing to do in the ceremonies that you can do to look after yourself is really, developing some practices to let go and surrender, breathing techniques, meditation, obviously things you can do in a ceremony that aren't going to interrupt others, but anything that you can do to shift the energy that is likely to come up as you start to work through the things you need to clear through. The better. One thing that happened to me, and I haven't really heard this from other people, well, I have heard this, in different ways, but not a lot, but in my first few ceremonies, or couple of ceremonies, I had a lot of demons and these entities coming towards me and things, and it was quite frightening, I've got to say. And I got a tip from a guy that I used, and he said to me, so he was the tip, he said to me, when those visions and those things come, say to them, I'm aligned to the light. If you're not aligned to the light, I command that you leave. And so the next time I went into a ceremony, so I'll just say that again, I'm aligned to the light. If you're not aligned to the light, I command that you leave. So I used that in the ceremony that I went in, and it worked like that. Like this entity came up, I said it, in my mind, gone, just disappeared. So, may or may not work for you, work for me. What I have learned, since then actually, that I don't use that anymore, because it's actually those entities are actually, a lot of those projections, those images are inside of me. It's just highlighting things that I need to work on, and so by telling them to go away, I'm not working on them. But then on the other hand, particularly if you're new to doing ceremonies and psychedelics, these sorts of medicines, then it can be a useful thing to have up your sleeve. But just remember that there's a point where you need to let that go, or else you're just not going to deepen into the experience anymore. But it can be a useful sort of tool there to have, when you need it. The other thing to be aware of is that sometimes, people can have, very strong ceremonies. I was in a ceremony a couple of months ago, and there was two women that it turned out that they actually both had deep abandonment issues, and they spent the whole ceremony wailing and reliving their experiences and things, which was fantastic. I mean, the next day it was just amazing. Like these people, it's like a new woman. But that was their process, and I found in that ceremony, so it can be quite distracting. Other people's process can be quite distracting. So again, this is good having these practices that you can to become present, whatever, just to let go whatever's going on around and come back into yourself and just quieten. And so again, the more practice you can do with that, obviously meditation is a good option there. Before you come, the better, sort of strengthen that muscle up. And sometimes, I've been in one ceremony in particular, where it was, the woman had a very strong reaction. She relived a deep childhood wound, death of a parent, and so in the end, all of us sort of came out of our process, and we just supported her. It was lovely. It was beautiful. This was very, very, and so that can happen as well. So, it's all a bit of mystery, and again, go back to number one point. find yourself thinking about someone else's process, you find yourself judging what's going on, you find yourself, you know, in your mind, just, okay, you're out, you're not present anymore, come back in, breathe, you know, get back in, feel your body, feel what's going on, feel your energy. It might not feel very good, but, you know, it's anchoring you back in the present moment, and it'll allow you to move through whatever it is, you know, you're moving through faster. You know, there's obviously that sort of habit that we've adopted in the West, particularly where, you know, the going gets tough, the tough get going. So, you know, pain gets too painful, we want to go away and distract ourselves. So, you know, it can feel painful for a bit sometimes working through this stuff, but popping out the other side is just unbelievable. You know, it's like, you know, again, getting clear on my intentions, going in with something, an issue, like I had an issue come up the week, I can't remember what it was now. That's what happens when you clear it, you forget, but, you know, I had a ceremony that night, it just turned out, so I went up to Akimati and did the ceremony, cleared it all out. Next day, I mean, now I can't remember what it was, but that day it was a major drama, so. You know, so, but, you know, the process itself was, well, for me, it was a lot easier now that I've done a lot more ceremonies. But, you know, at first, you know, when I first started my ceremonies and was learning to work with the medicines, then, you know, it took me a while to do that. In fact, it got to a point, and I don't know, ceremony number 30 or something around there, when I just said to Grandmother Ayahuasca one day, I said, please help me learn to work with you, because, you know, I realised that developed these ideas and things, and I completely surrendered, and then from then on in my ceremonies completely changed, you know, and a lot more smoother, and different things happening. So yeah, it's you know, it's all good. So yeah, important to stay in your process, you know, if you can. And the last thing, again, as I said before, well, I didn't say before, but you know, don't be afraid to call out for the shamans and get help from the shamans. You know, that's what they're there for. And just a sort of a word of just something to consider. You know, just be sure that, you know, if you feel like you need help, have you used your techniques? Can you get back to your breathing? Can you look after this yourself? You know, and if you can't, then shamans can come over, and there's all sorts of things they can do. You know, I mean. Use tobacco, use you know, different medicines like agua de flora here and things like this to clean and help shift and move things faster. So, you know, it's yeah. So that's what they're there to do to help with that process as well. So yeah. So just a few little things here to bear in mind, and through ceremony. But number one, just, you know, learn how to let go and really start building that muscle up now before you arrive. All right, thank you.